Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 134, Mengzheng. Hu Lu was known among the Changju tribe as the person most likely to become the hero. Although he was a cruel and savage man by nature, he was pretty skilled in fighting battles. His squad comprised of the best from the various Biancha tribes, and these cavalrymen only had fear and no reverence for Hu Lu. However, it was precisely because of this fear that the shock hit them like a ton of bricks. In just a few blinks of an eye, Hu Lu was cut down, and going down along with him was the Biancha cavalry's morale. Hu Lu had hastily concluded that there were countless Libe reinforcements behind them, and this consequently snuffed out the determination of the now general-less Biancha cavalry to fight on. They scattered in all directions, with Xiao Qiye as the center. Countless torches formed into a long line that pressed in towards them from behind, like a procession of 1,000,000 valiant soldiers. Within the Shazan camp, Gu Jin was also launching a surprise attack. Bayan was trapped both on the inside and outside. Seeing how composed Xiao Qiye was, Bayan was also of the impression that Xiao Qiye was leading the main forces of Libe. The crux was that when Bayan cast a glance over, he could see the obscure dark shadows behind those torches that seemed to stretch all the way into the horizon. Bayan did not want to repeat the same mistake. Holding his horse by the reins, he took a few steps back and gave the command to abandon camp and flee. The Biancha cavalry beat a retreat so hastily that they did not even collect Hu Lu's corpse before they faded into the night. Xiao Qiye stopped where he was. Tantai Hu led his men and put on a show, shouting and baying for blood as he chased after them for a few li. Only when Bayan dared not look back did he swiftly withdraw and return to Shazan camp. Even by the time Bayan looked back, he could still see those torches extending into the distance. If Bayan had been willing to look a little more closely, or perhaps if he had been able to calm down, then he would have realized that tonight's sudden assault was riddled with loopholes. Hu Lu's ability was a cut above the others, but as he had said himself, he was the commanding general in military field operations. Getting him to guard the camp and go on the defensive was to put the cart before the horse. If he had heeded Bayan's advice and remained in Shazan camp instead of heading out, he could have swiftly dealt with the small batch of imperial army that Gu Jin had led in, and he would have then gained the upper hand. The Shazan camp was an impenetrable fortress when its gates were shut. Xiao Qiye had no supplies, and that meant he had no military weapons to launch an assault on the fortress, so there was no way he could forcefully storm his way in. But Hu Lu had gotten complacent with his repeated victories after the start of spring this year and could not hold his own against trickery and deception. He thought it was a sudden raid by the Bianbo camp when he saw Gu Jin scaling the walls, and he thought it was the Libe armored cavalry's reinforcements when he saw all those uncountable torches. When he eventually saw Xiao Qiye, he had already been thrown into turmoil, and that was how he was defeated without ever fighting a battle. Xiao Qiye lifted Hu Lu's head and scrutinized that face with the stubbly beard for a moment, but he could not remember who this man was. He handed the head to Tantai Hu, who refused to take it, so he passed it over to Gu Jin and said, "Clean up all the bodies in the camp. Bury our brothers from Libe nearby, and bury the soldiers from Biancha far away. The weather is hot, so the corpses can't be kept around for long. Let's not start an epidemic." Gu Jin took the head and recognized this to be Hu Lu. He never expected Xiao Qiye to hack Hu Lu dead at their very first encounter. Guo Wulai had fought with this man for half of his lifetime, but in the end, the man was gone in just one night. Xiao Qiye removed Longli blade and asked, "What? Do you recognize him?" Gu Jin replied, "This man is called Hu Lu. Master, he's the one who beat back Guo Wulai in the north and occupied the Tudalong banner." Xiao Qiye had been running for 2 nights in a row. He still had other matters to attend to at present, so he merely nodded his head in acknowledgement before sending Gu Jin away on his task. He called out to Tantai Hu and tossed the blade over for him to hold as they both headed inside together. "This camp sure is big." Tantai Hu surveyed the surroundings and marveled, the construction of these walls can almost rival those of a decent city. There are even large bows on the battlements and trap pits at the foot, which would allow battles to be fought from close quarters and afar. My big brother spent a lot of money on this place. Xiao Qiye looked at the walls and said, memorize the layout on that wall. If there's anything you don't understand, you can keep it in mind to ask Chen Yang or Gu Jin later. Tomorrow, I'll get the military craftsman to pass the map of the camp layout to you as well. Memorize it too until you know it by heart. Tan Taihu hurriedly accepted his orders. Any discerning person could tell from this that Xiao Qiye was planning to entrust Tan Taihu with heavy responsibilities. From Chu capital to the current time, Xiao Qiye had brought Tan Taihu along with him every battle. Despite being barely literate, Tan Taihu still made an effort to learn how to read from Chen Yang, just so he would not let Xiao Qiye down for Xiao Qiye's recognition and appreciation of his worth and abilities. It was to see the military craftsman that Xiao Qiye had been in a hurry to enter. He had laid it all out clearly for Wu Ziyu, but there was one thing he did not mention, that he had no plans to return to the Shazhen camp after he had reclaimed it. This place had the best of both offense and defense, and it was also a protective shield for the Bianbo camp. It could provide Xiao Fangxiu with support from the north, and access the northeast supply route from the east. It was simply too suitable a location for him. Whoever wanted to ask him for it would have to come and negotiate with him in person. By the time Xiao Qiye managed to lie down, it was almost dawn. He slept in the tent for several hours. Chen Yang hurried over from the Bianbo camp while he was sleeping and did not disturb him. Xiao Qiye only woke up when it was near dusk. As he stood outside the tent with his head lowered to wash up, he heard Meng returning. Xiao Qiye secured his arm guard and blew a whistle at Meng. Meng hovered in the air for a while before landing on Xiao Qiye's arm. Xiao Qiye took out the prepared strips of meat from the leather bag and fed them to Meng. As Meng ate, he looked at the large walnut on Meng's leg. His lordship is well. Chen Yang smiled. He's letting you know he's safe and sound. But Xiao Qiye did not smile. He was, in fact, quite unhappy. He removed the walnut and grasped it in his hand for a moment before tossing it to Chen Yang. By specifically releasing Meng back, father is conveying his military orders. Open it up and read it to me. This old man is up to no good. Chen Yang opened the walnut and smoothed out the paper. Xiao Fangxiu's handwriting was bold and wild. He said he had long known that Amuer would send men around to the southeast camp, but he made no mention of why there had been no measures taken in advance. He also asked if Meng had secretly attacked you, and that Meng was too combative, just like Xiao Qiye. Finally, he told Xiao Qiye not to act recklessly and to remain where he was and await his orders. Xiao Qiye extended a finger and turned the letter over. He skimmed through a few paragraphs in front and pointed to the few brief and concise sentences at the back. Chen Yang coughed and read out in a steady voice, "No one knows a son better than his father. By the time this letter arrives, it would have been too late. I know you will definitely go for Shazhen camp. In that case, you can handle the escort and transportation on behalf of Wu Ziyu, as the general in charge of military supplies." Dead silence all around. Tan Taihu could not understand Xiao Fangxiu. Even if the Prince of Libei would not praise Xiao Qiye, he still ought to have deployed Xiao Qiye over to the site of battle. Letting Xiao Qiye render meritorious service as soon as possible was the best commendation and recognition he could give. Under the present situation in Libei, making Xiao Qiye a logistic general behind the scenes was akin to suppressing back the abilities he had displayed in Chu capital. Was his lordship insane? Or, would he not hesitate to hide Xiao Qiye away for another 9 years just to appease those in the heir apparent's camp? Xiao Qiye pursed his lips into a tight, thin line and endured it for a while. Without saying a word, he turned his head to look once again at the setting sun descending in the west. ******. A few days later, the company of traveling merchants set out from Tse province and made their way down south along the public road to Cha province. Kongling played the role of the steward, while the Jinyi Wei disguised themselves as the attendants and servants of a wealthy family. Shenzequan, using illness as a pretext, remained within the horse carriage and rarely showed himself in public. Kongling brought along the travel permit issued by Tse province, which saved them from a lot of trouble on the way. Nowadays, those who were able to get the proper official documents could not be underestimated. What's more, with the large number of guards they had, the common bandits did not dare to rob them recklessly, for fear of offending someone powerful. The beggars they came across on the way multiplied after they left Tse province's territory. Even children as young as 8 or 9 years old were forced to swindle people as a means of livelihood. They made all kinds of wild, exaggerated claims, even touching on the supernatural, all in an attempt to cajole the passing merchants into spending money for peace of mind and a safe passage. It was still fine the first few days, but it rained the next few days. With the weather abruptly turning cold, Shenzequan fell ill. Swindlers and charlatans abounded everywhere they passed by, with unscrupulous shops lining the streets one after another. Even if Kongling dared to call a physician over to take a look at him, Qiao Tianya would not dare to let the other party get close to Shenzequan. The good thing was that his illness was not serious. His fever persisted for only 2 days before it slowly receded. Shenzequan was now spending more and more time bent over at his desk, so it was inevitable for him to neglect his martial arts training. After he had sent Qi Huilian off on his final journey, he would often find his body easily overwhelmed, and he was prone to falling ill as the seasons changed. In fact, there had been warning signs of this as early as the epidemic case back in Chu capital, where he had simply fallen ill without warning. The carriage rolled over the mud and arrived in Cha province amidst the pouring rain. When Luo Mu, the prefectural prefect of Cha province, received Kongling's visitation card, he was in his concubine's room. He turned it back and forth to look it over repeatedly, as though he was going to perform some magic tricks and conjure flowers out of it. Still, he remained seated and refused to move his butt. His 14th concubine was new. They had only just held the wedding banquet a few days back. As his recent favorite, it was inevitable for her to be spoiled and pampered. The concubine, who could read a few words, took the card from Luo Mu's hands and asked, "Who is this Kongling?" Luo Mu held her on his lap and answered, "Kongling? A poor scholar." In his early years, he was a subordinate of Tan Tai Long, the commander of the Dun province's garrison troops. But after Tan Tai Long's death, he went to work for Zhou Gui. The concubine giggled as Luo Mu's beard nuzzled against her. As if afraid of being contaminated by the aura of poverty, she shook the visitation card with her little finger sticking up and asked, "Then how did he come to know master?" Luo Mu replied self-mockingly, "We were fellow students." "Oh my, then you'll have to play the good host to him." This concubine was always giving Luo Mu's principal wife the attitude. Her elder brother was Chai Yu, one of the bandits in Cha province whom Luo Mu relied on for backing. She thus harbored the intention to make Luo Mu divorce his principal wife. Plotting to use these outsiders' visit as a pretext to get the rights to host a banquet herself, she frivolously swatted at Luo Mu with the card and said, "I'll host a banquet for you, and you can invite my elder brother over too, so he could put them in their place. I heard that a batch of the Libé's military grains this year came from Tse province. These people have money." Luo Mu did not answer. He merely said, "Why waste all that money? We can just dismiss him with a few steamed buns. He's most likely here to borrow money. I'm not going to meet him." The concubine would not budge and threw a little hissy fit like a spoiled child before Luo Mu. The visitation card slid to the ground. Luo Mu's eyes followed the visitation card as it fell. He loosely grasped the concubine's arm and said, "It's not too late to do so when we meet him again in Tse province. Look, the card has fallen, pick it up." Seeing as persuasion did not work on him, She rose to her feet and threw a tantrum. Her embroidered shoe stepped upon the visitation card, and she stomped on it lightly a couple of times. I have yet to entertain any guests on master's behalf ever since I married into the family. We are both formally wedded to you, but why am I lower in rank than her? I'm. Before she could finish her words, she saw Luo Mu's expression turn frosty. He bellowed, "Move away." Concubine Chai had been doted on and spoiled ever since her marriage to Luo Mu. She had never been shouted at or scolded before by him. This thus came as a shock to her, and she took a few stunned steps back. Luo Mu bent over to pick up the visitation card. There was a shoe print on it, and he could not wipe it away. He kept away the visitation card with a glum face, then took the concubine's hand and said with a forced smile, "Don't bother yourself with the affairs in the front hall. I'll have a detailed chat with elder brother myself. I won't be staying today, but I'll come and see you again later." Without even waiting for his concubine to get over her shock, he lifted the curtain and left. It was still raining outside. The attendant opened up the umbrella, and Luo Mu walked under it. "Is he still there? Invite him to the front hall. I'll go see him now." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. When Luo Mu arrived at the front hall, Kong Ling had already been waiting for a while. On seeing Luo Mu heading up the steps, he rose to meet him. Both men smiled the moment they saw each other. Luo Mu gestured for Kong Ling to take a seat. They exchanged pleasantries for a moment before getting down to business. "It's also at His Excellency's direction that I've made a trip here to see you." Kong Ling drank the tea and said, "Chse province has gradually shown improvements these past few years. The fields are recovering well, and there is an abundance of grains. However, the population in Chse province has been on a steep decline, and we can't consume that many grains. If we store the remaining grains for a year, they will either turn moldy or end up being gnawed on by mice." Luo Mu listened attentively as Kong Ling spoke and noted how healthy his complexion looked. He did not have that much white hair either. Kong Ling met Luo Mu's gaze and gave him another smile. "So, we were thinking. The prefecture of Cha province is still buying grains from He province and Jiuxi for the past years at a high price. You're really getting shortchanged. So why not work out a collaboration between our prefectures? Both prefectures are close to each other, which greatly facilitates the transportation of goods. We are willing to offer you a lower price than Jiuxi for the grains. How about it?" Luo Mu realized there were wrinkles around Kong Ling's eyes when he smiled. Looking as though he had just awakened from a dream, he averted his gaze and thought for a moment before saying, "I more or less get what you mean. It's a good thing, but it can't be done." Seeing as Kong Ling still had more to say, he raised a hand to stop him. "Cha province is not Chse province. It's indeed bold and resolute of Zhou Gui to just go ahead and do it, but just how much of this courage is built upon his father-in-law? In his early years, His Excellency Lu resolved to eradicate the bandits in Chse province, and that's why Chse province is free of bandits today. But this is not the case for Cha province." Kong Ling had expected this. He fell silent for a moment, then said, "Mengzheng, is there not a chance at all?" On hearing Kong Ling call him by his courtesy name, Luo Mu hastily turned his head away. Kong Ling thought Luo Mu was in a difficult position, so he said, "Chse province has now rebuilt its garrison troops. As long as this deal can be sealed, we are willing to contribute to the important task of suppressing bandits in Cha province in the future. Mengzheng, the world is in turmoil at present, and all kinds of heroes will no doubt rise from among the people. As long as you live among them, you cannot avoid the strife. You and I have a friendship that goes way back from being fellow students under the same teacher. Why not use this opportunity to free yourself from the control of the bandits? You and Zhou Gui are in Chse province, so you aren't aware of my difficulties." Luo Mu turned back and continued, "If the bandits in Cha province were that easy to dispose of, then why didn't you come to me instead of going to seek refuge with Zhou Gui?" Kong Ling wanted to explain, but Luo Mu had already risen to his feet. The current grains are all purchased at high prices from Zhuexi and He province. Various bandit chiefs have a hand in this, and it is from this profit that they live off on. You now want me to buy grains from Tse province instead, which means you're cutting off their source of income. There is no negotiating this deal at all. If news of this were to get out, you and I would be in danger. I think you'd best go back. Luo Mu got his attendant to see the guest out. He strode a few steps out of the threshold and looked back. They had not met for many years. Strangely enough, no matter how old Kong Ling looked now, the way he looked as a student still remained firmly etched in Luo Mu's mind. The rain spattering under the eaves dampened Luo Mu's shoulders, and he remained standing in this position for a long time. Kong Ling had missed plenty in his life, just like this moment, where he could not see Luo Mu's gaze clearly against the backdrop of light. He merely said, "I'm determined to succeed on this trip. If talks fall through today, I'll return tomorrow. Mengzheng, I'm confident that it will work out, as long as you're willing to discuss it with us." Luo Mu was dumbstruck for a moment. "Who else did you bring with you? You used official paperwork from Tse province when you entered the city, and you delivered your visitation card to meet me. You've already exposed your whereabouts. I'd advise you not to act rashly. You should return to Tse province after a few more days." Without waiting for Kong Ling to answer, he lifted his robe and went down the steps. ******. A little later, Shen Zequan took his medicine and listened as Qiao Tianya reported both men's conversation word for word. Unable to help it, he turned back and looked at Qiao Tianya. Qiao Tianya nodded in understanding and said, "They have been fellow students for many years, their friendship is naturally unlike others. In Master's view, how should we negotiate this deal? Luo Mu is an interesting character. Although it's not peaceful in Cha province, his position as the prefect of Cha province remains firm and unshakable. We'll negotiate however we ought to." Shen Zequan's nose was a little congested, and his speech sounded a little muffled. Since he's still standing, it means he has a mind to remain so. Everything he has said today is all grandiose words. They aren't necessarily from the bottom of his heart. Think of a way to avoid scrutiny. I want to meet him. End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 135, Earring. The rain stopped the next day, but the sky was still overcast. Concubine Chai, who had been rebuked yesterday, pleaded illness early in the morning. Luo Mu did not sleep well during the night either. After his breakfast, his servant came to report that Chai Yu had sent him an invitation to a gathering. Luo Mu took the invitation, knowing full well Chai Yu's purpose for the invitation today. He wiped his hands. Without even changing his robe, he straight out said, "Prepare the sedan. I'll go over now. Let's not keep elder brother waiting for too long." Chai Yu was a known bandit in the prefecture of Cha province. Yan Hiru of He province addressed him as his Ye. Chai Yu was usually generous with his money, and he liked to assist the various bandits financially, so he was well reputed among them as a loyal and righteous man who was always ready to offer help. However, he did not get along with Lei Changming from Mount Luo. No one knew the reason why. All they knew was that before Lei Changming's death, both men would pay no heed to the other during the bandits' gathering feasts. When Luo Mu arrived at the Chai's residence, Chai Yu had already treated them to a round of drinks and food. Chai Yu's residence was even more luxuriously built than Luo Mu's, with more than 1,000 servants inside. However, he was not a man who was particular about unnecessary and convoluted formalities. After all, most of his visitors were bandits and robbers. As such, the feasts he held were literally wine and meat feasts that boasted of all kinds of roast meats and strong wines. The moment Chai Yu saw Luo Mu, he leaned back and beckoned to him with a smile, "Mengzheng, you're late. As punishment, you have to drink 3 cups of wine. Take a seat, quickly. Luo Mu had always been servile and docile in front of Chai Yu, so he complied and took his seat. Even when he saw the weirdly dressed strangers at the table, he did not probe. Chai Yu waited for Luo Mu to finish his drink before he said, "I heard my younger sister was bothering you yesterday." Looking panicked, Luo Mu started, "Elder brother. You were right to tell her off." Chai Yu pressed down on Luo Mu's arm and said with a smile, "You are her husband, and the man is in charge of the front hall. There are indeed many matters that aren't up to her to dictate as she wishes. She's used to being willful and spoiled at home, and even when she has gotten married, she has no respect for her elders. In the future, just tell her off whenever it is needed. There's no need to give me face. She's been so pampered that she's getting more and more out of hand." Chai Yu knew everything that happened in Luo Mu's inner chambers like the back of his hand. He did not apply that much pressure on the hand that was pressing down on Luo Mu, but it was precisely because of this that it seemed to take him no effort at all. If he told Luo Mu to head left, then Luo Mu would not dare to go right. Luo Mu was an official who passed the rounds of imperial examinations at the various levels to make his way to Chu capital in the proper way, where he then underwent official inspections to be assigned this post outside the capital. But so what? In Cha province, Luo Mu was just a blind follower. As they said, the sky is high, and the emperor is far. The local cities in remote places were beyond the reach of the authorities in the central administration. Banditry in Zongbo was already a serious issue during the reign of Emperor Yanji. Before the defeat of Zongbo's troops, they did not care at all about the Prince of Ji unseen Shenwei, and after the defeat of the Zongbo's troops, they gave even less of a damn about Chu capital. Fine sweat oozed from Luo Mu's forehead. Feeling satisfied upon noticing this, Chai Yu retracted his hand and said with a laugh, "Come to think of it, it's really unheard of. Half a month ago, I heard that there was going to be a change of emperor. That Jin Yue commander, Han Cheng, was so anxious that he ran back to his hometown just to find a child to be the imperial heir. But who knew that Secretariat Elder Hai would not agree and even banged his head in the hall to his death. Blood and brain matter splattered all over Han Cheng, scaring Han Cheng so much that he peed in his pants right there and then. All of them burst out laughing in unison. News that had spread by word of mouth had long rendered Han Cheng as a boorish, hunchback scum that bowed to powers that be. After Chai Yu was done laughing, he let out a long sigh and said, "But even though we are outlaws dealing in illegal trades, we still have to speak of loyalty and benevolence. Respect to the Secretariat Elder for his act. As the saying goes, men who wield brushes die in remonstrations, while men who wield swords die in battles. Great Zhou has been through 3 changes of reign. Emperors have died one after another, and yet upright and unyielding ministers like this are few and far between." Luo Mu listened to him, but did not interrupt, nor did he look up. He seemed intent on eating, even if he only dared to pick on the food before him with his chopsticks. Although he looked dignified in appearance, he gave off the impression of someone weak and cowering. Chai Yu did not look at Luo Mu again. He was speaking with gusto now. But perhaps the Secretariat Elder himself did not expect the throne to now go to a woman after the Han clan's child failed to sit on it. There has never been such a precedence ever since the founding of Great Zhou. Isn't this a violation of the law of nature and the reversal of gender roles? This is an omen for the collapse of the Great Zhou Empire. I'd rather listen to the words of an ignorant child than listen to the orders of a woman. What would it look like for a man of indomitable spirit to pay obeisance to a woman? Qidong has a Chizuyin. I think she just happened to be in the right place at the right time when the Empress Dowager was in power. Otherwise, how could she have gotten the chance to be the commander-in-chief? If Chu capital were to have a female emperor next, heavens, what a mess. A chorus of agreement rose all around. One man with a beard smacked the table and said, "Elder Chai is right. That's what it is. What is it with the female emperor? The first few emperors are indeed awful, but having a man as the head of administration is the law of nature, as Lao Tzu said. I'm not willing to concede either. Imagine if the entire court of civil and military officials were to kneel and pay obeisance to her as monarch and subjects, they would be an entire layer of cowardly good-for-nothings. No wonder we keep getting attacked by the 12 tribes of Biancha all these years. A daughter she is, yes. Getting married and keeping domestic peace are her duties. No harm done if they dote on her and raise her into a pampered, delicate lady. But it's a disaster to let them go out and fight battles or lead the government. Having said that, Chai Yu sighed with emotion. I heard that the students in Chu capital are all rather willing. I think they've all gone dumb and silly from studying. They can't even tell good from bad. Their conversations went from the political affairs in Chu capital to the military affairs in Qidong, then from the military affairs in Qidong to the war in Libya. Finally, the topic turned to Lei Changming. The bearded man said, Lei Changming was another one who got a lucky break to have encountered young Master Yan when the young master was in distress. He gave him a hand, and that was how he could rise in the world. But he was a person who couldn't last long. He was overbearing as heck, and even wanted to establish a regular army in Mount Luo. But look what happened. He encountered the imperial army and immediately met his end. No. Chai Yu snorted coldly. The person next to him said, Elder Chai and Lei Changming could be said to be the twin heroes of Zongbo, but how is Lei Changming deserving of the name? He doesn't even come close to our Elder Chai. Chai Yu was not moved by this flattery. He spread his arms open and sank comfortably into the chair. Do you know why I turn my nose up at Lei Changming? It's because I find him filthy. He emphasized the last word, just as the maidservant came over with his smoking pipe. He took 2 puffs and continued, Lei Changming worked as an armed escort in his early years. All of you know this. But why did he stop later? The reason he made other believe was that since he had married his younger sister off to the Zhou clan in Duan province, he was living a grand life and wanted to stop doing such work. But that was not true. It's because he had an addiction. At some point, Luo Mu had set aside his chopsticks. As Chai Yu blew out puffs of smoke, he said, when I first joined this trade and was about to complete my training, my Shifu said that one must be benevolent and righteous even if one were to be a bandit or a robber. There are some things you can't touch and can't do. Those are depraved acts that will bring you bad karma. There have been plenty of traveling merchants with families coming and going in Cha province all these years, but I'd never laid my hands on the widows and orphans when I came across them. However, it was a different story for Lei Changming. He'd also escort family members when he was escorting goods in the past. There was one time when he was doing a job in Deng province, and the man who was the head of the household died midway through the journey, leaving behind his hapless widow and orphan who couldn't even afford to pay the fees for the escort and transportation service. When they arrived at Deng province, the original in-laws on the husband's side only wanted their grandson, but not the daughter-in-law. The woman was unwilling to part with her child, and so she was forced into the corner. She thought of attempting suicide. Lei Changming brought both mother and son back home, saying he was going to provide for them. At that time, I was still a robber in Cha province, and I thought well of Lei Changming when I heard of this incident. I felt he was different from people like me, that he was a chivalrous hero that Shifu spoke of. I held him in esteem, and I'd take notice of him when I was out there working. I wanted to find an opportunity to become sworn brothers with him. But when I went to Deng province later, I heard that he had quit. It was only when I found the place that I learned that both the woman and child had died. How did they die? He brutalized them after drinking, laying his hands on that 5 or 6 years old child. The woman resisted, and he beat her to death. The child, having been tormented beyond recognition, lived for only a few days before he died, too. Chai Yu waved away the smoke and frowned as he had the maidservant take the pipe away. He went to Duan province and this indulgence of his never changed. This man valued his own reputation and he never dared to do it openly. Young Master Yan was still very young when Lei Changming saved him. I could be said to be friends with old Master Yan at that time, and the Yan clan had helped me before. So even though I had yet to see the young master then, I treated him as my own precious son. On hearing of this incident, I immediately gave chase for 4 days and nights in a row before I reached Mount Luo and got him back. At that time, the young master was wearing a bright, jade earring. He was fair and lovely, and very smart, too. As soon as he saw me, he called me Ye. Such a lovable child. Seeing as the young master was unharmed, I didn't bother to settle scores with Lei Changming. Each time Lei Changming met Chai Yu again later, he would self-consciously feel small. Chai Yu held him in contempt, and he did not approach Chai Yu either. To each his own. The young master is a good child. He was very grateful to Lei Changming for saving him, so he repeatedly extended a helping hand to the bandits in Mount Luo. Chai Yu had initially meant to ask Luo Mu about Kong Ling today, but he got carried away talking about these past events. By the time he'd remembered, Luo Mu had already left. Luo Mu got into the sedan chair, but he had not gone far before he changed course and headed for the cosmetic shop with the intent to buy some rouge powders that were all the rage in Chu capital to coax concubine Chai. The largest rouge store in Cha province was owned by a merchant from Juexi, and Luo Mu was a regular customer there. The moment he stepped off the sedan, a steward came over to welcome and serve him tea in one smooth motion. Finally, he bent over to inform Luo Mu, "Apologies, Your Excellency Luo. Unfortunately, we are all out of stock. All the good stuff is being prepared in the shop at the eastern end and has yet to be delivered here. What do you say if we deliver them to your residence tomorrow? Would that be all right?" Luo Mu nodded and made to leave when he recalled the way Chai Yu was pressing down on his arm earlier. Changing his mind, he turned back and asked, "Which shop at the eastern end?" The steward called over an assistant to personally lead the way for Luo Mu. Upon arriving at the place, Luo Mu noted that while the shop was not a large one, it was indeed close to the horse tracks and convenient for unloading goods. He entered and saw only a few people inside. The assistant led him further into the courtyard in the back, then served him tea and told him to wait for a moment. Luo Mu sat for a moment. The curtain lifted, but the one who came through was Kong Ling. "Why are you?" Luo Mu asked in astonishment. However, Kong Ling did not answer. He lifted the curtain and stepped aside, and a man in white behind him bent slightly at the waist to enter. The instant Shen Zequan raised his head, Luo Mu rose to his feet. Shen Zequan came in a sedan chair, and so he did not get wet. He looked at Luo Mu and gestured for him to sit. Qiao Tianya, who was following behind them, came in to change the tea and handed a fresh cup of hot tea to Shen Zequan. Seeing that Luo Mu was still standing, Kong Ling said, "Meng Zheng, this is Your Excellency the Vice Commander." Luo Mu respectfully paid his obeisances. "I've long heard of the Vice Commander's reputation. This humble Luo Meng Zheng is all ears to the advice you have to offer. I've previously heard Mr. Cheng Feng speak highly of Your Excellency Luo for your prudence and excellent judgment. As I see it today, this is indeed the case." Shen Zequan smiled slightly. "I'm no longer the vice commander of the Jin Jiu now. Without an authority token and an official post, I'm merely a commoner. It is I who should pay my respect to Your Excellency. How would Luo Mu dare to accept his bows?" The official in the emperor's inner ministerial circle, Shen Zequan, just his position as the northern judge of the Jin Jiu alone was enough to strike fear in the hearts of the local prefectural prefects. In the past, the Jin Jiu collaborated with the Ministry of Justice, Court of Judicial Review, and Chief Surveillance Bureau to carry out field works at the local areas to audit the accounts and review the local officials' accomplishments. Shen Zequan was also on good terms with Sen Yu of the Chief Surveillance Bureau and Kong Chiu of the Ministry of Justice. Luo Mu did not just hear of him. Originally, the main objective of local officials like him who had been assigned posts outside the capital was to gain experience. After building up their political achievements and taking their credentials into account, they would be able to get a promotion to Chu capital and become an official in the capital. Their inspections, evaluations and the lives of both them and their family all lay in Shen Zequin's hands. The key to this was evident in the way Luo Mu referred to himself humbly in front of him. Shen Zequin was different from the judge preceding him. His origin was not pristine. His birth father was the prince of Jianxing Shenwei, whose Zongbo's troops were defeated. Back then, when he entered the capital, he was escorted by the Jin Yue who had picked him up from the Libei armored cavalry. Rumor had it that he was to be executed, but not only did he survive, but he was even repeatedly promoted by Emperor Tianchen, who made an exception for him. The post of the northern judge concerned both factions in Chu capital, and yet even Hai Lianji had been willing to give his assent. What's more, this person was young, which only filled the others with even more trepidation towards him. It was only then that Luo Mu understood that it was not just a front when Kong Ling said he was confident of success. He was genuinely certain of success. Fortunately, Shen Zequin was merely saying it and did not get up to pay his respects. Luo Mu calmed himself down a little. Not daring to sit, he let his hands drop as he stood before Kong Ling and said, "Please excuse this humble official for not welcoming Your Excellency after Your Excellency has personally come all the way to Cha province. I'll immediately send someone. I followed the Marquis of Dingdu out of the capital, and is considered a traitor by Chu capital, so there is truly no need for Your Excellency to stand on ceremony." Shen Zequin drank the hot tea, soothing his throat a little before he continued, "I've been in Zongbo for quite some time, and I've long wanted to meet Your Excellency Luo. Fortunately, I have Mr. Changfeng to accompany me today." Kong Ling looked at Luo Mu and smiled. "Meng Zheng, there's no need to be so formal. The vice commander is now the pillar of Tse province. It's also to resolve the bandit issue in Cha province that he came this time. We are all on the same side." Luo Mu looked at him, his gaze not as blatant as yesterday. He asked cautiously, "How did you know I'd come? Chaz who is only this big? There are plenty of matters that one can find out with just a little inquiry around. That 14th concubine of yours has backing, and she has a temper to boot. She loves the rouges from Chu capital. You've always had a penchant for pleasing others by catering to their likes, so to coax her, you will naturally make a personal trip down yourself." Kong Ling smiled at Shen Zequin and shook his head. "The vice commander doesn't know it, but Meng Zheng was very popular with the ladies while he was still in the academy. He was a flirtatious one, too. Even before he entered the ranks of officials in the imperial court, he was very knowledgeable about all this stuff." Luo Mu relaxed a little when he heard Kong Ling bring up the academy. "I conducted myself with decorum when I was studying. How could I have been flirtatious when I was with you all day? On the contrary, you had countless friends and could fraternize with just about anyone." The atmosphere eased up a little at their banter. Kong Ling led Luo Mu to take a seat. Shen Zequin sat in the seat of honor. When he spoke, it was not as overbearing and aggressive as Luo Mu expected. "Mr. Changfeng has probably already told you about the purpose of our trip here. It wasn't convenient to have a thorough discussion yesterday, so it's inevitable that Your Excellency will have misgivings. Please speak your mind freely today, we can discuss any difficulty you may have." Shen Zequin was mild in his speech, and his expression was natural and at ease. However, there was clearly no room for discussion in his last sentence. Beneath his seemingly placid attitude was an unshakable resolve to get what he wanted. Luo Mu only had to hear this one phrase from Shen Zequin to understand Shen Zequin's intent. Discuss any difficulty you may have. What was the purpose of a discussion? To allow him to take swift action sooner. Shen Zequin did not give Luo Mu a chance to refuse at all. The moment he opened his mouth, he had left Luo Mu with no other choice. When Luo Mu looked up again, his timidity was gone. He said, if the vice commander can suppress the bandits in Cha province, then I'm willing to take the vice commander's lead. However, Cha Yu isn't Lei Changming, and the vice commander doesn't have the Marquis's 20,000 strong soldiers either. It will be indeed tough to rely on the strength of just one man alone. Shen Zequan said, unruffled, with our meeting today, we can stand up to 1,000,000 strong soldiers. End chapter. Notes: Lao Tzu is a reverent term of addressing someone.